Hello and welcome to this week's video on My Hero Academia. This week I'm reviewing the Vigilantes episode titled Ultimate Move, and we kick off this review as we always do with these reviews by talking about the positives, all the things I enjoyed about this particular episode, and we kick off with the headline positives. I want to say that this episode had some great action in it, some fun humour, and there was a great sinister tease towards the end of the episode with the delivery man. I know that's not his official character name, but we'll discuss that when we get to that shortly. I will admit two things going into this review. First of all, yes, this might be another shorter one because, to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot to talk about in terms of substance, but not out of a bad way, just more of a this is mostly an action sequence kind of way. And two, I will admit that most of my headline positives are almost word for word from the last week. That's because, well, so much about what I like about this particular episode has just been consistent for the past few episodes. The action that we see in this episode is still great, even if I will admit that it does feel like we're retreading ground from last week, with many of the same action sequences and set pieces being repeated. There was a part of me that was wondering if we weren't just getting some kind of replay. You know, as you sometimes get towards the start of a TV program, a cartoon, or an anime, when you just get that brief little bit of a flashback as to what happened towards the tail end of last week. But it turns out it isn't. That was just our heroes taking a second attempt to try and defeat this monster, which is understandable. The fact they're actually still trying with this plan is something that I can respect, and they're not immediately shifting gears into we have to use the ultimate move now or some other thing, or alternatively just padding time for All Might or some other overpowered hero to get down there. Understandable, and this week it works because it needs to work, otherwise this fight wouldn't end. Yes, I do wish there was a little more creativity there as to how they defeated the bad guy in the end, but hey-ho, it makes sense that they try and work with what they've got, bearing in mind that none of these characters are really close combat guys, apart from the giant mantis guy, but he seems to be out of his depth during most things. You see, the only time he seems to have confidently done anything was when he was trying to press play on his little knockoff iPod thing. Aside from that, yeah, he's doing his best. He's doing his best. We've got to give him all the credit and kudos in the world for that. Of course, this episode is titled Ultimate Move because that is a basic thrust of this episode, and yes, I will be honest, when I saw the title Ultimate Move, I was worried. I was worried that this would be the moment we pivot into some very hard super duper superhero nonsense with him going a level beyond, because you're not dealing with your average Cruller Man anymore. He's now become the legendary Super Cruller Man, and thankfully that didn't happen because his super duper move just kind of spluttered out the moment it used it, and it made absolutely zero difference to anything that happened in this episode. For all intents and purposes, it may have just thrown a tin can in the guy's face, or just slapped him in the face with a wet fish, or just sneezed in his general direction. It would have had just about as much effect on proceedings, and you know what, I'm kind of happy the way that he ended up boiling out. Yes, I know that a lot of people probably read this and weren't best pleased our hero once again is kind of falling short, and I imagine in the event this ever gets an anime, there's going to be a lot of people watching it just thinking, oh, that's how would do, oh, but I think it works. I think that it works for the character because he isn't your typical anime protagonist. From a pure ones and zeros power level kind of point of view, he's just rather crappy. As I've said in the past, he has a very generic quirk that he's not getting stronger. In this series, he's not getting stronger. He's just learning how the quirk really works. That's the secret sauce here. He's not becoming more powerful and learning new aspects. Well, he's learning new aspects of it, but he's not becoming more powerful. He's just learning how it works. It's like someone that's fallen off a bike, now learning how to ride a bike again. It's effectively just that, but with superhero powers. He really is just a guy, just your friendly neighborhood superhero who's trying to do his best to save people in the local area, to try and be a bit of an inspiration for the next generation of people, even if the next generation largely don't even know who the hell he is. And those that do know who he is, they don't know his name. It's a cute, it's affable. It really is just kind of makes him the most everyman kind of superhero that I've seen in a very long time. Oh yeah, I don't doubt that at some point in the future we're going to see that superpower being used to its full potential, with it being a really powerful and emotionally epic moment, or it being done against some guy who'll ultimately prove to just be a major mook in the grand scheme of all of this. Whether that not be the case, we'll soon see as the adventure goes on, but you know, it's for the here and now, it's perfectly balanced for what Crawler needs it to be and for what the story needs it to be. Right now, it's essentially just him firing off a blast of condensed air. I know that it isn't, it's just kind of like an energy thing, but in practice, it just kind of reminds me of those little air guns that were popular for the whole of a hot second during the mid-2010s. You know, those things where you just pull the thing back and a mild torrent of air just blows out, like you just blew in someone's face, that kind of thing. That effectively feels what it is at the moment, so, oh yeah, he can do a slightly more powerful version than that. Great. Other characters in this series can knock down buildings, fly and slice things in half with laser eyes. He's so incredibly underpowered that it really makes him really kind of endearing. And for the here and now, I'm here for that. I like that about him. I like the fact he's not the typical overpowered shonen anime character. He really is just a guy. He's an everyman. He isn't the hero the world needs, but he's the hero in this moment. He's doing everything he can do to try and make everyone's lives a little bit easier, whether that be to pick up rubbish or to help old ladies across the street, and if there's an altercation, he'll try and solve it. Though going off past records, that usually ends up meaning he gets duffed up a bit. I know, in fairness, if we're going to be honest here, the ultimate moving question for this, you know, episode's title wasn't Crawlers. It was the Delivery Man's. And yes, I know that's not his official name, but that's what we're going to call him for the duration. Because it's in this episode that we get to see the Delivery Man using his ultimate move to dispatch the squid monster so quickly that it's honestly rather terrifying. But more on that in a moment. Like, I will just say that I really like the way that title is almost set up to be a subversion. You think going into this episode that this ultimate move is going to be Crawlers, and given the way that programs and stories like this are structured, when you start, you'll have many episodes where the first half of an episode will be the latter half of an action sequence set up in the previous episode. Like, action sequences will overlap. Last 15 minutes of an episode will be a fight, then the first 15 minutes of the next episode will be the end of that fight. And the way that it was put together with that title and with that moment with a Crawler doing his monologue, it makes you think, okay, this is the moment where he's going to use his super duper super move, and yeah, maybe he'll never get to use it again until something big and important happens, but now he's his time to use it. Oh, he used it and it did nothing. Oh, well. And I kind of like that. Again, I like the subversion of that. It goes away to just show how out of his depth Crawler is, and to create this contrast in power between him and the Delivery Man, who can just anime bullshit to death a bad guy in a way that feels genuinely terrifying. So, good luck, Crawler. Good luck. You're a guy that you're effectively just a superhero that goes around on roller skates. That's all you are, and you have a little a condensed air capsule gun. That's effectively what you are in real world terms. You're just a guy doing your best, and you're going up against a guy that should be the villain in a fighting game. Good luck, buddy. You're gonna bloody well need it. To actually pivot into some of the more tangible and practical things I liked about this episode, once again, the artwork is fantastic. It is able to convey the speed, pace, and power of this fight in every way, shape, and form, and it is paced in such a way that it feels thrilling and it doesn't overstay its welcome, with no action sequence feeling as though it goes on for too long or too short. It works in the absolute best of mechanical ways, and whilst it is not the best action sequence I've ever seen in this series or My Hero Academia more broadly, it is one of the more effective ones because it at least sticks to the script and it does everything that it needs to in a ones and zeros perspective. It's especially is true when we do get to that moment we have the Delivery Man absolutely leathering the squid monster. That whole shot, that double page spread where he's just smacking into this thing just several times a second is just terrifying. And again, it shows just how powerful he is compared to Crawler. And whilst all that is happening in the lead up before that, the pacing of everything is done in such a way that it's able to maintain the momentum that our fighters have, because they're all kind of like speedsters. They're about momentum, they're about speed, they're about outthinking their enemy more so than they're about overpowering them. And I really do like to see the contrast between them and them fighting a villain that they can't usually take down on their own, so having to combine their powers. Both literally and more metaphorically, we're seeing them trying to fight a way around and use their combined abilities to try and get one over in them, and I like that. The scene that we end up getting with the Delivery Man in the alleyway is wonderfully dark and moody. There is still a part of me that is worried that we're going to go down a bit of an edgelord path for him, because just the way that he's designed and the way that he speaks, he feels like generic comic book bad guy number 3. He is the edgy, dark one, has a slightly sarcastic sense of humour. We've seen this for decades, and here it is yet again, but this time in the form for a story like this, which we haven't really had many characters like that in the main series, so to have a major villain in this one, be that okay. But in fairness though, given how he's depicted in this episode, that edgelordness feels less of him trying to be edgy and cool and just more the fact he's just flat out unhinged. The whole edgelord thing feels almost like a persona that he's putting on to look bigger and more intimidating than he is, to make him look like he is this character, has everything put together and he's some kind of mastermind, when in reality he's just a bit of a psycho, which I do like. We see this quite clearly when he gets that mild cut on the side of his face, and that makes him want to murderize the octopus monster. I mean, the whole thing with him getting the cut on the face and what he says there, I can't help but feel that this confirms a link to Knuckle Duster, because the only character we've seen thus far in this particular series that has a major prominent scar on their face is Knuckle Duster. They both have a very similar scar, and there was a part of me that was kind of thinking maybe this is a version of Knuckle Duster who at some point in the future was sent back to the past and he'll try and redeem himself or something like that, because there's always this part of me that's always worried that time travel's going to get involved here. But even still, even that's not the case, the scar thing does feel like it's a very deliberate tribute to Knuckle Duster, unless there's a new character that we're going to get introduced to over the next few weeks and months that has a very distinct scar that we can say, no, it's actually that guy, and Knuckle Duster is just some kind of red herring here. But then with that said, it is possible that this really is just a tribute to Knuckle Duster and he has no real connection to him. Maybe Knuckle Duster saved the delivery man at some point in the past, and now the delivery man has decided to dedicate himself to being like Knuckle Duster, but then at some point or along things became a little bit twisted. Maybe Knuckle Duster took on the delivery man at some point in the past as some kind of proto-crawler, some kind of next generation of vigilantes, someone who's going to be effectively the new him, and ultimately it didn't end up working out for one reason or another, because maybe the fact that the delivery man is a nutcase, it didn't really go anywhere. Maybe he is Knuckle Duster's estranged son, and the reason why he is as protective, if not overly protective, of the woman that we now as B is because of what happened with his son. Maybe we don't really know. All we know is that at this point there's a good possibility that the delivery man has O'Clock's quirk, or has had his quirk enhanced to the point where it functionally works the same. It's an interesting set of circumstances. I'm interested to see where it goes with it. I know bits and pieces about future plot lines, but they feel so fragmented that I can at least still speculate as to what it all ends up meaning. Though I will say, and this is probably something I should say in the negatives, but I will say in the here and now, I hope that the delivery man doesn't end up being our big bad for the rest of the series. I mean, there's, 50 volumes in this? We're about 6 into them. And I'd be really disappointed if it turned out that this guy was the big bad that ultimately our heroes have to defeat, and especially bearing in mind if my theories as to who he might end up being are correct, because if we don't get some kind of major resolution to that until we're into the final 10 or so, that's going to be a long time when we're going, yep, I know what it is, I know what it is, I've called it, I know what it is, I know what it is. We'll soon see where all that ends up going. Now, my final point I will say in terms of the positives is one that might feel oddly familiar, because it's something that I brought up last week as a form of speculation, but I think it's still worth discussing in the here and now. I'm interested to see exactly how Eraserhead's relationship with Crawler will develop, whether he will become more of a mentor-like figure to Crawler, because at least in that case it'll make his presence as a recurring character feel a little bit more substantial, and a little bit less like fan service. But I'm not entirely sure how much of a mentor he could possibly be, given the fact that Crawler, or rather Eraserhead, really doesn't like vigilantes. He's made that very clear multiple times in the past, and I frankly don't see a world where that's going to end up changing anytime soon, because there frankly is nothing here with which to suggest that it would end up going otherwise. Sure, like I said last week, ultimately their relationship might end up boiling down to Eraserhead at least advising Crawler to clean up his act and go legit rather than being a vigilante, but we'll see. I mean, Let's be honest, I don't think Eraserhead has much of a say in whether or not he's going to be a mentor, because it looks like Crawler is really looking for someone to be his new master. You know, his first one was someone whose solution was to attack every problem head on and just punch it into submission, and now his new master is someone who doesn't even like him, so, we'll see what kind of wacky shenanigans this odd couple can get up to. Ba-ba-da-ba-da, ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-da. With that said, let us get into the negatives, and this isn't a major negative, it just feels like a bit of a weird moment of just character development for me, which is the moment towards the end of the episode where you have Eraserhead and you have the detective just going for a walk, just talking about just everything that happened with the Octopus guy and everything connected to all of that, and then you have Crawler just running up to them and introducing himself. Eraserhead, hey, my old buddy, old pal of mine. Hey, how you doing? Oh, let me tell you about this and that. And just, I'm reading that thinking, what the hell are you doing? You're a wanted man, you melt. Why are you going over and talking to someone, talking to a police chief? Or a police detective, rather. You're going to get your collar felt, you stupid donut. I mean, look, I know the guy's supposed to be a bit of a goofball. I know he's supposed to be a bit naive, but this is a level of naivety that we've not seen with the character thus far, that it just feels like he's acting in a way that feels out of character. It makes him feel like he's acting in a way that's just rock stupid. Oh, sure, he's not a wanted man in the way that, you know, actual wanted men are. He's someone that's wanted for questioning in relation to an incident that happened recently. And the fact is, he's a vigilante, and it's speculated openly by the police that he might be a vigilante, be up to bad stuff, is probably a good enough reason for him not to hang around them. Oh sure, Crawler doesn't know that he's wanted by the police. He doesn't know that he's wanted for questioning, but even still, he is a vigilante. He knows he's a vigilante. He knows he's going to get in deep water if anyone figures that out, so, you know, the fact that he's being so reckless here is just so stupid. I don't understand why he did that. I understand it kind of from a mechanical point of view so that he could set up that recurring relationship that Crawler and Eraserhead would end up having. But it's done in such an out-of-character and strange way, it just makes the character feel like a total dunce. And I really don't like that. I'm fine with Crawler being a little bit of a goofball, a little bit naive, a little bit wet behind the ears, if a little bit too much so, where it makes it feel that Midoriya, a lad that's about 5 or 6 years younger than him, he's a lot more screwed on and knows a lot more about the world, and he's significantly more sensible than him, but still, we'll see where it ends up going. Maybe it's just all the crime dramas and stuff that I've seen. Maybe it's all the gangster literature and what have you that I've seen over the years, but I know that if you're up to no good, don't talk to the police, and if you're going to talk to the police, do it in a very careful way, because you might get in deep bother for something that really isn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things. You know, they got Capone on tax avoidance, for goodness sake. You could get Crawler for doing God only knows what, because he's jaywalked, for goodness sake. If jaywalking is even a crime in Japan, I really don't know. I'm sure there's a joke there, but we'll move on and get into the overview and say that I did enjoy the episode for what it is. I think it is fun for what it is. I know that I use "for what it is" a lot. It is a very common crutch phrase with me, but the truth of the matter is that it just is good. This isn't a significant episode for the most part. The most significant aspects that we get from it are the scene towards the end of the episode that I don't like with Crawler acting in a stupid way, and a scene just how spectacularly out of his depth that Crawler is going to be, bearing in mind that, yeah, the big bad at the moment is someone that can beat people up faster than light, so we'll soon see where all that ends up going with all that said and done. However, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner. Only one comment this week unless somehow someone gets a quickie comment in I can't cover because I'm recording this on the Thursday. Well, that's however, let us get into this comment, and it comes once again from Big X1, who says, I like this one, but I was hoping for more of a team up between Aizawa and Crawler because it didn't feel like Crawler did much. Thank you for your comment. This is of course referring to last week's episode, and yeah, this whole team-up thing, whilst I have enjoyed it, it hasn't really felt like much of a team-up. Well, I mean, it literally is. It's Crawler, Razorhead, and the two Recycle Hopper guys, and the Giant Mantis dude, but it just kind of feels like they're all just kind of there. They don't really seem to have much of a It doesn't really feel like they're collaborating as much as they should do, but this might just be the format that it's in. Like, if we see this in an anime form, we see this animated in some regard, that maybe that feeling will go, but hey-ho, what can you do? Let me know what you thought about this particular episode in the comment section down below, and you will be read out in a future show. Between then and now, however, I will say, thank you all for listening, thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!